Hello, welcome back to another daily lore react. I almost, didn't react to a video. It is Monday. It's 9:34 in the morning. Like I said, I react to these very early, either the day of or the day of posting it or the day before posting it, but it's always in the morning though. It's around six, five, six, seven, maybe 8 or 9 or 10. I don't wanna record anything after 10. I don't really want to record after. I don't want to record after 8. But I am lazy, so of course I'm gonna record after 8. So okay, well that's all out of the way. Um, let's go. This next one.
Now, I'm looking for people with faces full of wrinkles. The looser the skin, the better. Look at how pronounced these.
My parents disowned me for marrying my wife, claiming she wasn't good enough for our family. Yesterday, they showed up at our door after 8 years of silence. Not to apologize, but to ask if we would take in my 14-year-old sister. Turns out they're going to prison for tax fraud, and good enough is now the only option. 8 years.
uh, what the fuck? Wow, that was some introduction.
Ago, I made what my parents called the biggest mistake of my life by marrying Elena, my college sweetheart. In reality, my only mistake was believing they would ever accept someone they considered beneath our family's social standing. Elena was the daughter of Mexican immigrants who worked as a housekeeper and landscaper in the wealthy Connecticut town where we both attended university. I was the heir to 3 generations of old money and societal expectations. We fell in love despite, or perhaps because of, our different backgrounds. When I brought Elena home to meet my parents, their reaction was immediate and visceral.
Yeah, it makes sense. People like that, they're old. Not like they might be old physically, but I'm talking about like their money's old, and usually those type of people have old way of thinking. They want somebody that's in, you know, your circle to be married to you. Which, I mean, I understand why it is. Obviously, most people don't. I don't know if they would think about it, but I understand why you want your whatever, whoever, your daughter, or, well, mainly daughter, because other than that, well, daughter, yeah, and son, I understand why you want them to be married to somebody with similar status or somebody with higher status. It makes sense. Because obviously, either if you're not on the same status level, you either are going down to their status level or they're trying to live up to your status level. And most likely, that's going to be impossible. Most likely, improbable. Most likely. So, that it's just, it won't work out usually. It usually won't work out. The only way it'll work out is if you separate yourself from your family. And that usually means walking away from money. And obviously, you have to ask yourself, is money really important to me? Or is love really important to me? Or this person I think I love important to me? One of those questions will be, asked to yourself. Obviously, nobody else has the answer but yourself. Some people might give you opinions, but the only person that can truly answer that question is you.
My mother barely spoke 2 words to her before excusing herself with a sudden migraine. My father waited until Elena was in the bathroom before hissing that I needed to think about my future and the family's reputation. Their message was clear: Elena wasn't welcome. For 2 years, I attempted to bridge the divide. I arranged dinners, sent thoughtful gifts, and patiently explained how brilliant and accomplished Elena was, graduating top of her class in engineering, securing a prestigious job at a renewable energy firm. Nothing.
I mean, honestly, you could be the smartest person in the room. if your backgrounds of not similar status, they can care less.
Mattered. To them, her family background was an immovable stain. The ultimatum came 1 week before our wedding. My father called me into his study, where both parents waited with grim expressions. Either I end things with the Mexican girl, they never used her name, or I would be cut off, financially, emotionally, completely. I would be written out of the will, removed from family photos, and considered dead to them. My response was to place my house key on the desk and walk out. We married in a small ceremony with Elena's warm, welcoming family and friends who'd become more like family than my biological relatives. No one from my side attended. My younger sister Sophie, only 6 at the time, wasn't allowed to come. The photos from that day show genuine joy but also the unmistakable.
Ooh, that sucks. Your younger sister, my God. Honestly, it would suck to leave your younger sister there, but of it, you can't do anything. I mean, I wouldn't say just your brother, but that's your parents. Your parents obviously have more right, obviously, than you as a brother. So, of course, unless something happens, of course, that's the case scenario. But in this case scenario, obviously, they have more right than you do. So you can't really do anything.
Absence of half my family history. The first year was hard. Despite my education and connections, I discovered how quickly doors closed when the Hamilton name was withdrawn. We moved to Colorado, where Elena's company had a
I mean, obviously, many people only want you because of your name. That's it. They don't care about your educational level. They mainly care about your name, which that's why most people try to, if they have a family name like that, they try to distinguish themselves without using the family name, just so they could get on their own 2 feet. 2 feet. 2 feet. Because obviously, I wouldn't say using the family name is kind of bad, but I mean, if you're not actually smart, or if you're not actually, you don't want to push yourself and see if you're capable of doing whatever that gets your family name actually the recognition it actually deserves, then obviously you're just going to use the family name. You're just going to use, quote unquote, your power to do whatever you do. Otherwise, you probably try to make a name for yourself.
opening, and I found work teaching at a local community college. We built a modest but happy life, eventually buying a small mountain home with a garden that Elena lovingly filled with plants from both our heritages, her mother's Mexican herbs alongside cuttings from my grandmother's rose bushes that Sophie had secretly mailed us. For 8 years, the silence from my family was absolute. Birthday.
So they're still in contact with the sister, okay. I want to see the problem of them raising a sister. I would say if they do, they would have to have complete guardianship over the sister. So they had to release their parentship over the sister. So obviously, you could take place. You probably won't parent them, but you would obviously be their brother, of course.
Cards I sent to Sophie were returned unopened. Christmas gifts met the same fate. I hired a lawyer once to ensure Sophie was at least receiving the trust fund my grandmother had established for her before passing, the only piece of my family legacy that my parents couldn't touch. The lawyer confirmed she was, but also that my parents had legally changed their wills, removing me as I'd been promised. I grieved the loss of my family, particularly missing Sophie growing up. But with time, the sharp pain dulled to an occasional ache. Elena and I built our careers, traveled, and 2 years ago welcomed our daughter, Lucia. Life moved forward. Then yesterday, a sleek black Mercedes pulled into our gravel driveway, a jarring sight against the backdrop of our modest mountain neighborhood. Through the front window, I watched my parents emerge, looking older and somehow smaller than in my memories. My father's confident posture was stooped. My mother's carefully maintained appearance showed signs of neglect. Between them stood Sophie, now 14, a teenager I barely recognized. I instinctively moved to block Elena and Lucia, asleep in her playpen, from whatever storm had brought my parents to our doorstep after 8 years of resolute silence. Elena
I mean, it makes sense that you don't recognize your sister. Like you said, she's 14. It's been 8 years since you've seen her, so makes sense.
woke with a commotion, immediately understanding from my expression that something momentous was happening. She simply squeezed my hand and whispered that she would take Lucia to the bedroom, giving me space for whatever was coming. Opening that door was one of the hardest things I've ever done. I expected accusations, perhaps even violence. What I didn't expect was the defeated expression on my father's face or the tears tracking down my mother's cheeks, carving rivulets through her makeup.
They're not gonna apologize, I don't think. Probably not. But they probably are, like they said, defeated. Because their pride is taking a hit. Because they have to come to their son that they've written off because of their own faults.
The story emerged in halting, pride swallowing fragments. For years, my father had been orchestrating an elaborate tax fraud scheme, hiding millions in offshore accounts while maintaining their lavish lifestyle. The FBI had been investigating for months. They were being indicted on multiple felony charges, with almost certain prison sentences ahead. Their assets were frozen, their reputation destroyed. They had 72 hours before surrendering to authorities. They hadn't come to reconcile or apologize. They had come because they had nowhere else to turn. Sophie needed a guardian while they served their sentences, potentially 8 to 15 years. All their so-called friends had abandoned them when the scandal broke. Family members had refused to take Sophie, fearing association with their crimes. The state would place her in foster care unless an alternative was found. I looked at my sister, taller than I remembered, her eyes revealing a weariness no 14-year-old should possess. She'd been just 6 when I last held her. Now she stood before me practically a stranger, clutching a worn backpack with white knuckles, trying to appear invisible. My parents didn't beg. Even in disgrace, their pride remained intact. They presented Sophie's guardianship as if conferring a favor upon me, the chance to prove my responsibility after my regrettable choices. Not once did they acknowledge Elena by name or ask about their granddaughter sleeping just rooms away. For a moment, I considered the poetic justice of turning them away as they had done to me. The symmetry was tempting, to have them feel the same rejection they'd so casually inflicted. But looking at Sophie...
This is your sister, so I mean... You're not, you don't sound like you're that heartless. I mean, yes, turn them away. It would be, like you said, poetic, but I mean, at the same time, it's not just them. They wouldn't come here if it was just them.
I saw only a scared child about to lose everything familiar, whose only crime was being born to my parents. I invited them inside. My mother's eyes widened at our modest living room with its mismatched furniture and handmade quilts, a stark contrast to their marble-floored mansion. My father remained standing, refusing the offered seat as if accepting hospitality would somehow diminish him further. Elena emerged without Lucia, having heard enough to understand the situation. The temperature in the room dropped as my parents acknowledged her with tight nods. She returned their coldness with gracious offers of coffee and fresh-baked bread, her mother's recipe. They declined both. Sophie remained silent throughout, studying the photos on our walls, evidence of the life and family she'd been prevented from knowing. Her eyes lingered on images of Elena's large extended family at cookouts and celebrations, the community college where I taught, our wedding day, and finally, Lucia's birth announcement. 8 years of happiness they'd chosen to miss. When Elena gently mentioned that Sophie would of course be welcome, that we had a spare bedroom that could be made hers, my mother flinched as if the generosity caused physical pain. My father stared at a point above our heads, his jaw working silently. The contrast between their cold pride and Elena's warm hospitality rendered their prejudices absurd, even to them. Legal paperwork was produced, temporary guardianship forms already prepared. As I reviewed them, my father mentioned...
I mean, it doesn't matter if it's temporary, honestly. She'll be 18, she'll be over 18 by the time they get out. So, I mean, it doesn't really matter if it's temporary or not. Once you're over 18, you could choose if you want to continue speaking to your parents or not. So, I mean, it really doesn't matter if it's temporary. If they're going to go to jail for 18 years, 15 years, yeah, it doesn't matter.
That Sophie's trust fund would cover her expenses, as if our concern was financial burden rather than her emotional well-being. Elena quietly left the room and returned with Lucia, now awake and curious about the strangers. My parents looked at their granddaughter for the first time, neither moving to hold her or even acknowledge her presence. Lucia, sensing the tension, buried her face in Elena's neck. The irony wasn't lost on any of us. The daughter-in-law they deemed not good enough for their family was now the only person willing to mother their child while they served time for crimes that destroyed the very social standing they valued above their son's happiness. They left within the hour, my mother allowing herself one brief, awkward hug with Sophie, my father limiting his goodbye to a firm handshake and reminders about homework and her allergy medication. No thanks were offered to Elena or myself. No acknowledgement of the magnitude of what they were asking. No recognition of their granddaughter.
They're the same people. They're gonna be the same people once they leave prison as well. Unless they really did some sort of reflecting in prison, then most likely they're gonna be the same people when they get out. I mean, maybe. That's maybe. Because I don't know if they'll have money when they get out. I'm not sure. Probably not. So they'll probably be broke, most likely. So they might have a change of heart. Who knows? Obviously, the story doesn't tell us. It's about to end. So, of course, who knows? They could possibly be the same, or they could have a change of heart. We'll never know. You could only assume.
Pride, it seems, survives even the most complete falls from grace. After they drove away, Sophie remained on our porch, watching the space where their car had been with dry eyes that had clearly learned tears solve nothing. Elena gently placed Lucia in her arms, the first contact between sisters, and something in Sophie's rigid posture softened. That night, as I helped Sophie unpack the single suitcase containing her permitted belongings, I found a carefully folded stack of every card and letter I'd sent over the years, clearly retrieved from wherever my parents had hidden them. She'd kept them all. Sometimes family is who raises you. Sometimes it's who welcomes you when you have nowhere else to go. And sometimes, it's who chooses to love you despite everything that stands in the way. Our door is open now, and whatever comes next, we'll face it together, the family my parents never believed we could be.
Oh, my rent is due in a few days and it's not looking good.
Honestly.
You ever thought about picking up a shift with Shift Smart? What is that? It better not be one of
Honestly, yeah, this is so true. I mean, the story is like, it's kind of, I don't know if it would be, it sounds realistic, of course. It sounds like it happened multiple times in life, over and over again. This story just sounds like it happens over and over again between somebody that's rich and somebody that's poor as well. It happens all the time where their family doesn't accept her or him because of their status, yada yada yada. Same basic scenario, different outcome, different way of living, different, basically it's all across the board, honestly. But honestly, it is a good thing that they're together again. The family basically is back together. Her sister is now living. His sister is now living with him. So that's good. I mean, it's like 8 years late, but that's good. Okay. My parents disowned me for marrying my wife, claiming she wasn't good enough for a family. And that's by his Reddit story react. Hope you have a nice day, good evening, a nice night, and a good morning. Okay. Bye.